He's been a called of master of quiet luxury, a curator of comfort, and one of the great storytellers of American design. For more than 4 decades, Paul Wiseman, the founder of the Wiseman Group, has created interiors that whisper refinement, balance tradition with innovation, and reflect the soul of the people who live in them. With clients around the world and a philosophy rooted in collaboration, craftsmanship, and cultural context, Paul has elevated interior design into a deeply personal art form. Today on Beyond the Design, we sit down with a visionary himself to explore a life lived in pursuit of beauty, meaning, and design that endures. Well, welcome to Beyond the Design, where we explore the artistry, collaboration, and creativity that define exceptional spaces. I'm your host, Craig Beaumont Flynn, and today we're diving into the world of Paul Wiseman from the Wiseman Group. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, you founded the Wiseman Group in 1980, and as we've talked prior to getting recorded, you're celebrating 45 years in the business or having your own firm. You're one of the top interior design firms in the country. What inspired you to start your own firm at a young age?
Well, I have been traveling a lot since I was 17. I went to Europe for 3 months the day after graduating from high school. And then I did my junior year of college in Australia. And my best friend came down and joined me. And we spent 6 months traveling through Asia. And about halfway through that trip, I was studying political science at the time. And he said, why are you studying political science? All you do is talk about art, history, architecture. I was like, bing. And that was really the start of it. And when I got back to San Francisco, I had some jobs in the decorating world and fabrics. And my parents said that they would let me go to design school if I got a job in the industry to be sure I liked it, because they'd spent all this money on my education doing pre-law. And so I got a job, and then I moved to France for a year and turned 25 there. And an antique dealer in San Francisco came over for a couple months, and I helped her fill a whole container, and I got very excited about all that. And when I came back, I got a job with an interior designer on Sacramento Street, and he was very difficult. And he ended up firing me because I was making so much money selling his stuff. And anyway, Sue Fisher King, do you remember her shop on Sacramento Street?
I do, yes.
Well, she had just started, and I got to know her walking to work every day. And so I told her that I was fired. I hated my employer, and I'm going to move back to France and work on chateau restoration the rest of my life. So she said, darling, while you're suffering, can you help me with my windows? I'm desperate. And simultaneously, within a week, 2 of my former employers' clients who were very connected in San Francisco society both came in and said, we wondered where you went. Come work for me. So I got myself a resale number, and I started without very much. And then I never looked back. I never went back to school, never did any of that.
So you just had the natural tact, yeah?
Well, it wasn't easy. The business part is always the tricky part, is to understand, how to say no. That was very hard.
That is very, very true. Well, over the years, the Wiseman Group has become known for its ability to blend diverse architectural styles with local history and motifs. How do you approach the integration of these elements into your designs? And is there a Wiseman Group or a Paul Wiseman aesthetic that you try to incorporate your stamp on to every project?
Well, I think it's more, I have educated my eye about all architectural types, starting where I grew up in the Sacramento Delta. I grew up in an 1860s Victorian house, a lot of details. Our community had 2 William Wooster houses, which are the classic California house of the mid-century. And then I traveled, and everywhere I went, I kind of kept note of what I was looking at. And so I always find what's the reference point. And usually you can find it no matter how bad the architecture is. And if there isn't one, we make one. And then you start connecting the dots. And I think it's about, relationship. So everything relates, we find the vision, we create a story, and then create a carrot for that story. And then everybody follows the carrot, and it's about connecting the dots and what's appropriate to those dots. And so that's what I teach to my employees. And I think if there's a Wiseman look, which I don't think there really is, it's more about connecting the dots. That every aesthetic has a relationship within itself. So we don't go, this is, you know how you see today, there's an awful lot of just crazy, throw everything in, buy it on first dibs, don't look at it. And it's very messy. It's not designed. And our work is designed.
Well, there's a lot of trends. I think, within 45 years, the industry has obviously changed drastically with Pinterest and social media and television shows and the how-tos and DIYs and all that. So obviously the Wiseman Group has a very definitive, I think, handle on design, and it has throughout the years. From what that's my assumption.
Well, I'm glad you see that. I call it the Disneylandification of everything. And I tell my clients that are often very wealthy, I just remind them, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a guiding principle also.
Well, how do you deal with clients like that present a design to you, say, I want this, like a haircut? How do you defer them? That's like, it's not your lifestyle. It's not the home. It's not the environment. How do you kind of guide them into the right direction of what really is part of their lifestyle and where they need to be?
Well, I always say like the real estate agent, the three rules of real estate, are location, location, location. And I say 3 rules of interior design are appropriateness, appropriateness, and appropriateness. So is it appropriate to your lifestyle? Mm-hmm. Is it appropriate to the location where you live? And is it appropriate to your budget? And then you create, that back to this, creating a story. And a lot of people want a story that's not them. And that becomes really obvious pretty quick. And so I try to give them permission to be themselves. And that's pretty much how we start.
Well, you've put together a talented team of designers. And like you mentioned, you have 58 employees. How do you cultivate such a deep field of talent? And what qualities do you look for when adding to your team?
Well, I have James Hunter, who's been with me almost 29 years now. And that's a long time in the decorating world. And then I have, I think, 10 people that all been with me for more than 20 years. And we call it's about empowerment, I think. I'm pretty good at a lot of things, but not great at everything. But I know when someone is doing something really good and sometimes better than me, then I empower them to do that. And then I compensate areas where they're not so good until they are good. And so my key people all have kind of passed the litmus test of being Wisemanized. And that's what we call it in the office. And it's been a wonderful journey. And we're like a big family. And we have really talented people, and we have really amazing clients.
Well, I mean, 20 plus years with one firm as an employee and working with someone, that shows integrity, I think, and also shows a lot about you as a leader, that people don't want to leave your hand. They kind of want to stay with you. Well, congrats to you on that.
Yeah, no, I think they'll keep me propped up as long as I'm willing to keep going. like Frank Geary's 96 and still working full time, so it can help.
Yeah. Well, can you discuss how you incorporate these principles into your project and the impact of sustainable design on your work, and how has that influenced your journey in this field, as sustainability and eco-friendly practices are pivotal into the Wiseman Group, but also into overall design aesthetics and where the industry has kind of led itself?
Yeah, it's been a very tricky road. When I started, there was no concept of that. Mm-hmm. And it got much better, but now I think it's gotten worse again. Because there's, we used to do a lot of business in Indonesia, 30 years of major projects in Hawaii, where we had a lot of teak furniture made. But the Indonesians are notorious for cheating. It's not sustainable, and they would do everything they could to make you believe it was, fake certificates, everything. And I had to finally pull completely out of doing any business with Indonesia. Now anything we have made of teak is all from Costa Rica, where it is sustainably grown and certified. That's one dynamic. Then there's a new dynamic that I'm a little terrified. I don't know what to do. It's all the acrylic dyed super fabrics, which are amazing. They're basically 100% plastic, and yet they feel like cotton wool linen and look like cotton wool linen. And I don't think we have a way to dispose of them, and let alone know what they're actually doing to us. So that concerns me, and I don't know quite what to do about it. So it's a constant battle.
Right. An ebb and flow. Have you seen a lot of more interest and needs coming from your clients in sustainability and eco-friendly products and to be incorporated into the design and the project?
Oh, yes. The solar power, the insulation, it's everyone's interested in that. Here in California, particularly, and I work with a lot of the high-tech people who are usually the cutting edge, and they want it. I just finished a high-tech bazillionaire's house down in Palo Alto, and it's the most high-tech house I've ever worked on. And I didn't even know these houses could do these things. And it's like, God. But it's pretty fabulous. There's from the movie theaters to the TVs to water, how it's moved through the house. It's fantastic. It's always exciting, the new things.
But do they take you to bed and tell you a bedtime story at night?
What's that?
I said, do these houses, the technology, do they tuck you in bed at night and tell you a bedtime story?
It's getting there, but not quite. It's not quite.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as you mentioned, your firm is located in California, in the city by the Bay, San Francisco, a region known for its dynamic blend of history and cutting-edge technology. How has this environment influenced the aesthetic and ethos of the Wiseman Group?
Well, I was very lucky. One of my first clients was the investment banker for a lot of the startups back, 40 years ago, and introduced me to a lot of the early tech people that became, billionaires. So they started with one house, they were young, and then all of a sudden 2 houses, and all of a sudden it's 5 houses. And so that really established us as a firm early. And I think the amount of money these people would make at a very young age kind of changed things, so I work for old money also, but these people were particularly open to innovation, trying things. It was a very exciting time, because it still is. We're still in that loop. I got to work with a couple of people that are dead now. I can mention their names. I'm totally, non-disclosure on everyone else until they die.
Yeah.
But my list is very interesting, but I can't tell you about it. But like Gordon Moore, the founder of Intel, was probably one of the most important techno wizards of the Silicon Valley. And I got to work with him and build a house in Hawaii with he and his wife. And it was an extraordinary experience working with a mind like that. He actually figured out an algorithm of how I did my work. Really, I had no idea that was possible. And it was a lot of fun. And then Paul Allen, one of the founders of Microsoft, who was a recluse. We never got to meet him personally. It was only through videos and drawings. And we did this amazing house in Los Angeles, and it was all done through high tech, but we never got to meet him. So it was it's very interesting work.
Well, given your long list of clients, relationships are crucial in this line of work of the design industry. What's your philosophy on building meaningful connections with your clients, and how do you ensure their deepest desires and life experiences are reflected in their living spaces, and them and their personalities and their characters and their lifestyle of who they are is ultimately brought together?
Yeah, it's tricky. You're dealing with a lot, not all my clients, but some that are, they don't come from sophisticated backgrounds. They just they're very smart, and all of a sudden they're very rich. And so it puts them into a world realm that they're rather insecure about. And, you see it happen where they think they're supposed to look like somebody else. And
Right.
that's not, and that's where you get the ugly houses, and, they ended up in gilded palaces, and it's not, it's not who they are. They're a kid from Tucson,
Right.
and so I try to give them permission to be themselves and in the most sophisticated way. So, I tell them I'm their temporary best friend. They have to tell me everything.
Right.
And, it's a contract. So they know they don't have to stick with me, but a lot of them do. But that allows their ego to kind of drop. And then we find out what they like, and sometimes they like really strange things, but we figure out how to make those things. Well, I try to find what is the aesthetic sensibility behind something.
Mm-hmm.
They might say, oh, I like, gold furniture, but they don't want a house of gold furniture. They like things that are shiny. So we start backing into shiny things, and then you start building a story that's more aesthetically pleasing. And I think most of my clients have been very happy that the houses are sophisticated for those that are sophisticated enough to notice, but comfortable so their friends from high school wouldn't know what they've got. And I think that's really important to be human in your home.
True. And you have to feel at ease in your home and in the environment that is created for you. And
Right, and they think that these people can change the world. They have the resources and access to a world that I don't. But if I give them a background that makes them acceptable to anybody in the world, from world leaders coming to their homes. A lot of my clients, presidents, I've worked with the Secret Service many times when the president comes to visit my clients, and they want a background that empowers them. So the president comes and likes their background, then they listen to you better. But if their house was really ugly, that that affects your power, and people judge, poorly on people, unfortunately. But it's kind of a shield for them that it's not false. It just gives them a legitimacy in realms that they may not have much experience in.
Well, you've overseen a vast amount of projects with various of styles from traditional to contemporary and everything in between. How do you maintain your design integrity while adapting to such a wide range of clients' taste and architectural styles?
I think it's kind of like what I said a little earlier. It's relationships.
Mm-hmm.
The integrity comes if I want a Japanese house, I have to make sure that everything hints at the Japanese, so that it stays consistent. It doesn't have to be a replica. It just the sensibilities of Japan. I've been to Japan many times, and there's an incredible sensibility of everything. Mm-hmm. And if you bring that to the house, then I'm working in that style. If I'm in Hawaii, where there's not a lot of history for decorating, we go pretty wild. Could be anything. Right. And the weather makes it easy. So I've done some really creative things in Hawaii that I would never be able to do anywhere else in the world, and have fun. I think so. So it's all about sticking to relationships. Where are you? Who are you representing, and be clear about that.
Is there one type of project that you have not done yet that you still want to do?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been very lucky.
Or place.
I would say, more like a place.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 international jobs right now, which we've never had before, and one in Singapore, which is a really big job, and a Silicon Valley client doing a vacation home on the Costa Brava in Spain, and both have been really, really fun, challenging, and interesting. I think I've done tropical houses, snow houses, desert houses. I think I would love to do something extremely simple, like really simple.
Very contemporary and minimalist.
Yeah, probably contemporary, but it's so simple you wouldn't be sure.
Really?
Yeah, do you know Tadao Ando's work in Japan?
Yeah.
You know how he he distills things, takes concrete and turns it into, magic. I got to work with Ricardo Legarreta in Mexico. He was Luis Barragán's protege. And Luis Barragán's one of my idols. And he got simplicity very well. And I got to do 4 projects with Ricardo before he died. And that was a real privilege to work in that realm. And then I think that encouraged me to think simply. Have you ever been to Barragán's house in Mexico City?
No, I have not.
I highly recommend it. It's like a for designers and architects, it's a religious experience. It's just so zen and so beautiful and beyond simple.
I will definitely put it on my list. I love Mexico City. I think it's a beautiful place, and
it is.
It's
gotten better, and better. It's just it's safer, and the food is amazing, and it's a very sophisticated place. His son, Ricardo's son lives in Mexico City, and
oh, really?
Yeah, and we did one of our design leaderships there, and we got a tour of his house and a lot of Barragán houses. It was really amazing.
I will definitely have to put that on my list for next trip. Well, the Wiseman Group has a reputation for superb quality and high professional integrity. How do you maintain these standards across all the projects simultaneously or at various times? And what measures do you put in place to ensure that they are met and your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, that it's consistent?
Yeah, well, it's our culture. And that it's only possible by having people that have been there for 20 years to be as big as we are and keep the level of quality, because I can't dot every T and I by myself, even though I would like to. And that's so. And then it's our trusted vendors. Whether it's a contractor, the person that makes the sofa, that does the drapery, that does the carpets. We work with amazing people. And I try to teach my clients that, I heard there was a great quote from Hermes that they were saying, Hermes is so expensive. And Mr. Hermes said, no, we are not expensive. We are costly. It costs what it takes to make quality. Expensive is when you pay too much. Oh. I thought that was, so that's kind of, and I actually think, that's been our philosophy also. So, I always tell my clients that they are the patrons of the arts. They keep all these artisans alive. The Basosky rugs, everything handmade for you and made once. That's a world that just barely exists anymore. And these people have the resources to do it. And I encourage them. I say this keeps these art forms alive. Otherwise, they're gone. And so I think that's kind of how we keep it so high.
Well, design is it answers my question perfectly. Interior design has constantly evolved and changed, and especially during your tenure in this journey in the design industry. What are some of the current trends that you find exciting, and how do you see them influencing future projects and design as a whole? There's a lot of talk about AI, and then we have all the social media stuff and all the, like I said, DIY shows and things like that.
Well, I think an AI is interesting. It's in its still infancy, I think, because it's a little out of control. The people are using it in design. I can always see when the AI is, it's been a drawing by AI. And no, this is not realistic. Right. But it's not bad. But if you're looking for an idea and go into AI and say, draw me a house in the desert that looks like Ricardo Legarreta and Jeffrey Bawa did it together, they would probably come up with something pretty interesting that you could start with and then modify. So I think that's a very exciting realm. We have the technology we have with our iPhones and iPads and Zooms. I'm on Zoom since COVID. It's part of my life. I get to work from home 3 days a week because I'm on Zooms all over the world, all different time zones. And that's been fantastic what it allows us to do. So there's AI is going to be I had an AI do they needed 500 words for some magazine of my biography. And my associate, she said, let's do AI. And it came out really flowery and horrible, No. So then I said, tell it to write it as though Joan Didion wrote it. And within 30 seconds, it was fantastic. and I used it. I liked
it. You have your novel, your life story, all set
right.
for
You
you.
know, so I'm very open to new technology. I think it's very exciting.
Well, reflecting on your career, Paul, what is there a particular project that stands out as exceptionally meaningful or transformative for you and your firm, and what made it so significant?
Well, I'm working on one right now. I've been working on for 10 years, and we're going to photograph it. This Frank Gehry house, and I've known Frank for 35 years and never worked with him before. But and I brought him the client. He doesn't always accept the jobs, and then I've been marriage counselor for the last 10 years on the project. But it is now finished, and we are Architectural Digest is photographing it in May. And that was wildly challenging, and it's an aesthetic that most of us never get a chance to work in. And Frank is an artist, and he lives in a very interesting world, and that hooking into that has been very rewarding. But for me personally, the one house that I think that was the best is a client of 30 years hiring Ricardo Legarreta. It was the second house I did with Ricardo, so he trusted me. And so it was the architect, the interior designer, and the client all really getting along well. And it's one of my absolute favorite houses on the Big Island, Hawaii, and extraordinary house. And but it was an extraordinary process. It took us 6 years to build it, but and it still resonates with me in a nice way.
Looking ahead, what new goals or projects are you most excited about pursuing with the Wiseman Group?
Well, this house in Singapore has actually been quite exciting. Singapore have you been to Singapore? It's really,
yes, I have. Yeah.
It's like the city of the future. I was first there when I was 21, and and the Raffles was run down, but now it's quite. It's quite a different world. So it's a different culture, different climate, and clients that are very open and want a Western imprint on their Eastern house. And so it's been intellectually challenging, and I think maybe it's opening doors. Well, if we're successful, it'll open some nice doors for us.
There's a lot going on in that part of the world, and as they call it, Asia Light,
But there's a lot going on here too. I have two really interesting projects down in Big Sur. Each one is on its own peninsula, jutting out into the ocean, and they're only about a mile apart. And one's under construction right now, one's still in planning phases. But that's an extraordinary part of the world to be able to build on and do something environmentally connected. And one client's having me channel my inner Nepenthe. Remember the restaurant, the hippie restaurant,
right?
And so I'm bringing in tiles and colored glass, and it's very creative, and I love that. Then the other thing is, it's really been wonderful. We are over the years I've started developing an interior architecture department, because a lot of architects don't like to do the details and interiors. Now we are 17 full-time architects, and we do extraordinary work, some ground up, but mostly our specialty is interior architecture, where we partner with a famous architect that doesn't really want to do it, or the client doesn't want that architect to do the details on the inside, and then it's become our kind of market niche. So I'm very excited about where that's going. I'm not an architect, but I get to play with them. I play with them without the responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. You have just the oversight, which makes it nice.
Right. Exactly.
So what are you most surprised about during this journey of yours in the design industry that you didn't know, or you thought knew, and kind of just surprised you?
I think well, like everything in life, it's surprising how dumb you are. The because you think you know something, and something or someone comes along and completely destroys your delusion. And I've actually loved that part of it, that I'm constantly having to rebuild my ego and my sense of knowing things. That I do know a lot. I'm very grateful but I'm always learning, and I think that's been the best part.
So after 45 years, where do you want to take the Wiseman Group? What's next for it?
Well, we are in the process of figuring out how to keep it going after I leave, and after some of my seniors leave, and we're doing a really, we're over the next 5 to 10 years. That might be a big transition, and we want to see and make it stable, and try to create a stable environment for all the young people coming up. I have a fantastic group of designers that are coming up that are amazing, and I'd love to create an environment that'll make it easier for them to survive. Because starting your own design business is not easy, as you know.
Yes. Well, after you step away, which I don't see anyone, if it's in your soul, it's in your passion, it's part of who you are. Do you think you'll be able to step away completely? 100%?
Well, I have another life. I heard, a lot of people don't have other lives, other than their career. And I love to garden, and I love to cook. I love being home. I love to read. I've never been able to read like I want to because I don't have time. So I could see some hybrid slowly evolving, and maybe they'll keep me on because they need my consulting, and maybe that'll be fine. But I'm not ready yet, but time moves on, and we do have to make those decisions. But I think having a garden has been my salvation. I really love that aspect of life. So,
given the importance of local culture and history in your designs, how do you prepare and research for projects in locations that are new to you or your team, like Singapore and the south of Spain, Costa Brava, and other places?
Well, I read, I love doing research. And I never feel like I quite have been able to do enough, but I think when I travel and my history of traveling, like Singapore, I had been there 5 or 6 times over the last, 40 years. And so I knew it well enough. And then my clients are actually Indian. And, so that was wonderful to bring their culture into the Asian culture. And yet they're young and modern, and so it's all kind of exciting. And but you do have to travel, and reading are the best ways you can prepare.
Is there a particular style, aesthetic, or time period that resonates with you personally?
Oh yeah, I love history, and South Africa. Colonial South African architecture is very, very dear to my heart. The climate is identical to Northern California, yet the history is much older. And colonial architecture is something that California has also, where you take Baroque architecture from Spain or Baroque architecture from Holland, and then you have indigenous people that don't have the skills kind of try to interpret it, and it adds a great deal of charm and in its simplicity. So that's where I go back to that simplicity thing, that I find colonial architecture very, very charming and simple, and in a grand way in South Africa and Spain, are the colonies. So historic houses, and that's from 17th, 18th century. I think there was a lot of really great things happening at that time.
As a creative, do you always change your own space?
No, actually not.
No?
I don't have time. I live in a historic house on Belvedere Island, which is just 10 miles north of San Francisco. It was an island until 1958. It's kind of where the summer houses were built we're the only place in the world where you go to get warm in the summer rather than cool.
Right.
Because San Francisco is so cold. And so this microclimate is just magical here. And I found this amazing house that was built by the first woman surgeon in America, and she lived in Berkeley. And her best friend was Julia Morgan. And so and it's not on a street because you came by boat. And so it has this kind of remote quality, even though it's not. And it's small and it's manageable. It has a great garden. So I've been there 25 years and I love it.
Nice. It's a beautiful area. How do you see the role of technology impacting interior design? And we talked about AI and all the other stuff, particularly in the areas like sustainable development and energy efficiency. How are those affecting design?
Well, I think, having worked with Frank on that house, and Frank can take his hand and draw what he thinks it's supposed to look like. And the computer takes the wand and puts it on the screen and figures out how to build it. And, that's a game changer, that we can use our mind to create a form. And you can see what's happening with architecture now. It's absolutely amazing, the things that we're able to do. And I think that's going to get better and better. And as we learn how to live in a more difficult environment, I think it's going to be extremely important.
Right.
So,
I don't see AI replacing designers because there's that human interaction and connectivity, and I think, as you mentioned before, it's getting to know your clients. You have to know everything about them. You become their best friends and know what's in their drawers and how they wake up. And
well, it's like I say, I tell my clients, I don't do your house for you. I do it with you. It's not my house, it's your house. And AI is not going to be able to do that. It might encourage some aspect of it and
right.
throw out an idea you hadn't thought about, that's a great tool. I mean, that's how we all get inspired. We take a trip and see something wonderful. We read a book, think of it, so AI whispers in our ear, oh, that's a neat idea, but they're not going to do it.
True. If you could revisit any past project with the knowledge and experience you have now, which would it be and why?
I think that's a catchy one because, because most basically, I think I was a different person and the clients were different people, and we react. I dealt with a lot of really big egos that were very difficult for me in my earlier career. And I think I could have given them a better house had I been able to stand up to some of these, their bad behavior better. And at this juncture in my career, I stand up very well. I hold my own. I hold my own quite well. I'm not intimidated by any of that. But I could have done. I guess there's a number of houses that I look back and say, oh, had I just held my ground, they would have had a better house. But when you're young, that's just not possible.
Right. You're hungry. You're hungry for the work. You're hungry for the creation, and
Well, you want the gratification. You want to say yes. I remember there's a point in my career, I was used to people just saying no, and I had to justify everything. And then all of a sudden, one day, they kept saying yes. And it was like, what happened here? I guess that's when eldership comes, and you become more of a master of your craft, and then people pay attention a little better. So that's been nice.
So tell us a little bit more about any other current projects or future projects that you're working on besides the one that in Singapore and Spain.
Yeah, that's been very interesting. The Big Sur ones are really on my radar right now too, for the creativity that I it can only California could build these kinds of houses. They're slightly artsy, and they're both going to be modern, but they've got that bohemian locale. Big Sur is a very magical place, and it doesn't tolerate all architecture. The architecture really has to feel grounded in the place. So I guess on my environmental side, I guess that's been very good. Yeah, I like houses that feel well sited, connected to the place that they're in. So I think that would be probably my future goal all across the board. Does this house belong here?
Mm-hmm.
Because we see so much that's not.
Right. True. Very, very true. For people who are just starting out in interior design or even homeowners looking to create a space they love, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Say that again.
For anyone that's starting out into interior design or even homeowners that are looking to create a space they love, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Stay clear with your vision. Don't listen to anybody else. I think it's so easy to get affected by, oh, this person's famous, I should copy them. No, use your intuition, and follow it. And I think you'll be, and basically that's a little cliche, but follow your passion is really is how it works. If you're authentic to yourself and authentic to your vision, your clients will see that, and your project will reflect that.
So what is one favorite part of the design process for you?
What is one?
A favorite part of the design process?
Favorite part? Oh,
yeah.
Oh dear. I think there's two parts. The beginning, where the alchemy takes place. The magic, the swirl of the ideas, and then turning them into reality. All the desperate energetics. I love that part. It's the wizardry that I think, and then when we give the house to the client, when we finish, when it's never finished, but when it's finished enough, and the vision is something that they actually wanted. When they somewhere in their subconscious, they may not have said the right words, but they see it and they know that it's theirs. And that's a very rewarding moment in design.
What's the best design decision you've ever made?
That's impossible. I don't know. I think it would come close to using the word no.
No.
Which is something I never knew how to spell it or how to say it, but I actually do now. And so that usually is connected to a decision. So when, that sometimes, too much is too much sometimes, and you have to be able to edit. And design is all about editing, and the word no is editing.
Is there a material or color palette you can't get enough of? Is there a go-to material?
Yeah. Well, I'm a native Californian from the many generations of Californians, and the color, landscape color here is, that blue sky, the green and the gold, the dry hills and the green oaks, those three, blue, green, and gold, which is a very elusive. Each color is really hard. In nature works. When you try it on the palette, it's really hard to get it right. But I'm constantly, if I were to have a favorite color, you would see me playing in those colors still.
Is there one design risk you think more people should take?
One design. I'm sorry, we're not hearing.
One design. Is risk. There?
Well, there's a lot of them. It depends on the job, usually whatever you're most afraid of is where you should go. It's like someone says, I don't like red, and then that's usually my first alert up, that, there's something in red that has a charge. So let's find the shade of red maybe. And then it's fascinating how that works. They close off something by thinking it's one thing, and it's especially in color. Color is never one thing. It's so elusive, and I've had pretty great success kind of using that as a guide.
Have you ever been asked to install or create something in an environment? It's like, I just cannot. You had to use your word no. I just cannot do it.
I have. I have a couple of words that really, really kill them when I get to that point. I say, it's so suburban. and then if that doesn't work, is it? Well, don't you think it's a bit pedestrian? And that usually gets them. they say, oh, no, not that.
So I asked you earlier what's next for the Wiseman Group, but what's next for Paul Wiseman?
Oh, just more. More has always been my middle name, and I think there's something that's been happening as I age is that less is a word I'm loving, and it brings with it great satisfaction and great beauty, because it's the world is chaotic, and less is a way of bringing the chaos down, and it's kind of wonderful. So I'm really exploring that at this juncture in my life, and I like it.
So 45 years ago, when you took this turn into the design industry, are you happy to where you've gotten to this far? I mean, 45 years is very substantial. I mean, congrats and lots of accolades to you for withstanding the test of time.
I'm still, as a business, I'm still standing, which is 45 years. I've been in the industry 50 years, but yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. I am so grateful. I've been so blessed. I've had so many extraordinary experiences and good luck, good health and all those things. And, I'm very, just very, very grateful. Yeah.
Well, sir, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners and tell us about you or the Wiseman Group before we?
No, just, I think for, I don't know who, young designers watch your podcast, which, I've seen a few of them that are very nice. I think just, be open. The world is so incredibly beautiful. And we get to be, caretakers of that beauty sometimes. We get to be, guardians and teachers, and, don't take it lightly, because it's a great gift.
True to that. Well, that's words to live by. And I thank you for your time and coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, so nice to see you again. All that long history ago. So I thank you very much. This has been really fun.
I'm glad. All right, sir. You take care of yourself, and we will chat soon.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Paul Wiseman has shown us that true design isn't about trends or spectacle. It's about how a space makes you feel, how it reflects your story, and how it elevates the quiet moments of everyday life. Mastery and a reverence for the handmade and the heartfelt, Paul continues to shape a legacy that is both timeless and deeply human. We're grateful for the wisdom, grace, and the grounded beauty he brought to today's episode of Beyond the Design.
Hi, you're listening to a Pod for Good Media Network podcast. We are a network that provides podcasting production services and a supportive community in which podcasters can thrive. If you're a podcaster local in the Tulsa area, we would love to have your show on the network. If you are interested in starting one, we would love to help you get started. Find us online at podforgoodmedia.com and fill out our Pod With Us form. Happy podcasting.